England, they have made it into a trash can. Make Great Britain great again. You have to follow the British rule, not any other rule. Get that right in your head. Honesty, loyalty to your country. And those who want to live in this country, they need to live under the laws of this country. So, my dear friends, diversity is good, but when you abuse the power and the privileges that is given to you in this country, it is not good. Home Office, check your own department for fraud, for money laundering, and for bribery. Check your own department.
London is now 37% white. Birmingham is 43% white. Manchester is 49% white. The three biggest cities in England and Wales are now white minority cities. Again, that is a massive, massive, rapid change. And 1 in 6 Britons are now born overseas. That's up from 1 in 8 just in the space of a few years. So immigration is clearly fundamentally changing the makeup and nature of the country. And that
if I am in this country and I cannot abide by the law of this country, I think I should be deported as well. Why do you come to a country, you know the rules, you know the regulations, especially when you come illegally, you know everything is on the book. If you cannot follow that, if you're not okay with UK being a Christian country, maybe go to a Muslim country then. Yeah. There are many, there are plenty. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm doing it. I don't see any ethnic minority, unfortunately. So, but yeah, it is what it is.
So London was 95% white in the 1920s. It is now 29% white.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't think whites are better than other people, whatever, but it's just not London anymore.
They're the something.
There is not a single white British child in 72 schools across England.
Oh my God.
In 454 schools, white British children make up less than 2% of the student body. White British children are also now a minority in 1 in 4 schools. That is data from the Department of Education reported by The Telegraph today. Tell me this, how does any country expect assimilation, let alone a shared culture, when thousands of children grow up in classrooms where white British identity is the exception, not the norm? Will there be a White History Month? What? To help with these minority children to feel included, will there be DEI initiatives to give them a leg up? Of course not.
And then you see how much violence there's on the left, with our friend Charlie Cook getting murdered in cold blood this week, and people on the left celebrating it openly. The left is the party of murder. And celebrating murder. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. That's who we're dealing with here.
All about. We're marching because we want our country back. We're fed up of being reduced to second-class citizens in our own country by the wretched, corrupt, self-serving career politicians at Westminster. This country is becoming like a third world country, and we're sick and tired of watching everything, our culture, our heritage, our traditions, our customs being eroded.
What is the culture for people who don't know what British culture is?
Pardon?
What is the British culture for like people who won't
Everything.
know?
Everything that we do that makes us British. whether it's the flags, the castles, our monarchy, St George's Day, our Christian culture, Easter, Christmas. It's all being replaced with what they call a multicultural society, where we will just be reduced to one of many different cultures. Well, we were never asked if we wanted to become a minority in our own country. Just because we want to preserve our own country the way it's been for thousands of years doesn't mean we're racist, doesn't mean we hate anyone.
There you have it. How would you feel to become a minority in your country where your ancestors have lived for thousands of years due to a utopian idea of multiculturalism? On the flip side, how would you feel if you're in your native country and another country came in and militarily dominated you, colonized you, exploited you, enslaved you, and bring most of your resources back to the colonizer's country? How would you feel? The issue with this multiculturalism is that you have most of the people / migrants moving from the East and the developing world to the developed world or the imperialist world, and not the other way around. So this is why many persons in the Western society are saying that this is an invasion. On the other side, the colonized people from the East and the South are saying that, hey, wait, you brought in our resources and built your empires, and you left nothing for us. And we want some of that wealth that you've created. However, most Eastern societies stay ethnically intact. But if you've seen for the past few years, Western society, the new mantra now is multiculturalism. Under that veneer of this utopian idea of ethnic cohabitation, it's always about money, power, and control. Because the multinational corporation and the elites have moved past nationalism, and now their mantra is globalism, and it is always about the money. In this video, you will see why many citizens in the West, especially England, are upset. They are tired of this multiculturalism because they realize that they have become a minority in their country and they are fed up and want the migrants out. In the meantime, while they are upset, power and the elites are quiet and relaxed in the midst of the chaos, which tells me that this ethnic confrontation is just a footnote, in their bigger plan.
To the Prime Minister, if you don't mind, are we still a Christian country?
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms of a Christian country, I was christened, so that is, my church has been all my life, and we are, that is wired into our informal constitution. Of course, we celebrate many other faiths as well, and I'm really proud that we're able to do so as a country.
Just when you thought things could not get more insane in the UK, we've just got population figures for England and Wales for the year ending 2024. They are mind-blowing. The population has increased by 707,000 people in just 1 year. That's 1 year. And if you look at all years since 2020 alone, we've added 2.5 million people to the population of England and Wales. And why is this? The number one reason, mass migration. Last year, in just 12 months, Mass migration added 690,000 people to the population of England and Wales. That is equivalent to a city the size of Liverpool, comprised entirely of migrants being added to England and Wales in 1 year.
Tell me, which society can absorb such influx of migrants without disrupting the social, the cultural, and economic order? How can any society sustain that economically when most of the wealth is moving from the bottom to the top? But the question we must ask is, why? Why is there such an influx of migrants in a society that is already overburdened economically?
So now we learn that every police force in Britain and the National Health Service now promote people according to their ethnicity, which means if you're white, male, oh my goodness me, middle-aged, you are discriminated against. Racism, I thought, was illegal in Britain, but it seems to be okay if it's against white people. We in Reform reject this completely. We want everyone treated exactly the same and given jobs on ability, not on race or sexual preference. Dead simple. I hope you agree.
I was born in 1982 in Luton Town. My mum was an Irish immigrant to Luton. She's one of 8 from a poor family. And I grew up in a town that is one of the most diverse and multicultural towns in Europe, actually, in Europe. So I saw firsthand what it's like to grow up in a multicultural community, but also what it's like in a town that, when I was born, had 1 mosque in 1982 and now has 45. So we're nearly at a 50% Pakistani population of Muslims. And I saw the problems from that. And I spoke about them. And I guess when people say I'm guilty of things, I'd say, yeah, I'm guilty of being a decade ahead. But that's not because I had some golden light bulb or could see into the future. I just saw my hometown. I saw from growing up as a child to what had happened. And when I grew up, and again, I'll start off, if you line all my friends up and you get 30 of us, the majority of us are sons of immigrants, whether it be St. Lucian, Bulgarian, Italian, Irish, all of us are sons of immigrants, yeah? I went to school. Some of the best people I met growing up, some of the people I love from growing up are Muslim. But that doesn't change that there's a massive problem. If one Muslim got in any fight, 100 of them got in a fight. So something very different. I've never seen that until I got to high school. And then I got to high school and see 10 or 20 men booting one kid. And I've never seen that because people had a fight before and they just had a fight. Now, literally, and then when you get outside the school gates afterwards, if you say when we were 13, 14 and we had some trouble with some Pakistani kids at school and trouble's going on, when you come outside school, there'll be 30 men. There's no 30 black men or white men coming up to school. They're all at work. Yeah. But there's 30 Pakistani men waiting outside school to confront the 12, 13, 14-year-old kids.
I hope this video is making you think. Please don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe.
And British people, you need to wake up. You need to wake up and fight for this country. Wherever you have relocated, British people, please come back and fight for your country. This country has allowed corruption in every department. NHS is suffering, police force is suffering. You need to investigate your home office. Who's taking bribe from under the table? Immigration has to be strict now because they have brought in many illegal people inside. Because I'll tell you, from immigration or from the borders or wherever, you know, the solicitors have been taking bribe and they are getting their paperwork done. And that is how the people are able to come inside. Before it was not like this. It was very strict. They used to ask all the documents, why you want to go to England, why you want to go to UK. But today, England, they have made it into a trash can. Today, England, they have made it into a trash can.
Oh my God.
Any Tom, Dick and Harry can come inside. Yeah. So my point is, Home Office should be investigated because in Home Office the corruption is going on, and in the borders everything is being played by money power. Money power.
When the English were conquering the world, when the English were making the world England, they didn't finish, obviously. They didn't finish. They got 40% done and they ran out of steam. But 40% is amazing. Think about it, that tiny, itty-bitty, teeny-weeny little island where they boil their steak and fry their tomatoes, where it's always raining, somehow conquered 40% of the planet. I still can't wrap my mind around it. They only ruled it for 200 years, but still.
Would you say that England created this perfect storm by conquering, colonizing, and pillaging the resources and peoples of the other countries? Or would you say that it wasn't the average British citizens who did that? It was the royals and the elites who literally pushed this colonized mantra, and most of the wealth stayed in that small group.
So we're seeing the latest rise of Britons complaining about immigrants coming over. But here's the reality. Britain invaded or occupied almost 90% of the world's countries during its empire. That means that nearly every corner of the globe was touched by British conquest and invasion, from Africa to Asia to the Americas to Oceania. Millions were displaced, enslaved, and killed. You know, entire economies and ways of life were stripped of resources to fuel Britain's wealth. And the irony, right? Many of the people coming to Britain today are from those very countries that Britain destabilized. Poverty, conflict, and general inequality didn't just happen. They're a legacy of empire. So when people complain about immigration, maybe the question isn't why are they here? The real question is, after what Britain did for centuries, how could they not be here?
I'm English and I'm British, and if you don't like it, tough. And those of you who are saying, oh, Britain doesn't look like it used to look like, and we've got an island of strangers, let me tell you, I was born here, so I know what Britain used to look like. And in the 70s, we were playing out with all colours and all races. And yeah, we had our little childhood scraps, but we got along. And if you want to say, oh, we don't mean you, we mean the migrants. Well, my mum was a migrant. My mum was a migrant from the Caribbean, and she came to this country and she worked in the NHS as a qualified nurse for decades. More decades than some of you who are running about saying you're protesting in London today have even been alive. She worked nights on what back then was called geriatric wards. Geriatric wards, they now call them care of the elderly wards. So migrants like my mum came to England and they were caring for your nans and granddads, or great nans and great granddads. When some of your families wouldn't even bother to go and visit them, they were in hospital. When governments neglected them and left them ill, hungry, cold, some homeless and lonely, migrants such as my mum were looking after them, not only physically, but emotionally in hospital.
I ask you one question. Did we do it deliberately? Yes, 100%. Deliberate policies of British colonial officers that estimated 100 million people according to this article and these historians. So what's their motivation? Their motivation was to reduce the population of India and save as much money as possible so that they can bring back that money to Britain. Most of London, over 70 to 80% of London, all the historic beautiful buildings you see in red granite were made during the Victorian period. If not all the money, overwhelming majority of the money came from India. India was looted, bled dry. You don't believe me? There's a book by an Indian author called Shashi Tharoor. He has written this book titled Inglorious Empire. In this book, he gives all the details how the British literally drained India dry of money and of food, and hundreds of millions of Indians died. From 1750 to 1947, when the British came to rule as a colonial power in India, they killed hundreds of millions of people deliberately as a policy.
So we heard the argument from the anti-immigrants. And we just heard the argument for pro-immigrants and immigrants themselves. They say that they have a right to be a part of England. When you listen to both arguments, from my perspective, they are both correct. So why are they having this kerfuffle?
Did you know the UK looted $65 trillion from India during colonial rule? Oxfam's Global Inequality Report reveals that half of this wealth ended up with the richest 10% in the UK, creating an economic divide that still impacts us today. Before colonization, India contributed 25% to the world's industrial output in 1750. By 1900, India was reduced to just 2%. Colonial exploitation didn't stop there. It laid the foundation for modern multinational corporations. These corporations continue to exploit the global south by paying workers wages up to 95% lower than those in the global north. It's a modern-day legacy of colonialism. The report Takers Not Makers highlights how global inequality has roots in historical exploitation, affecting economies even today. Shouldn't we question the so-called development built on injustice?
As we speak today, 75% of all the minerals traded at the London Stock Exchange are coming from Africa. And none of them are owned by us, Africa. That includes minerals coming from a region right here where we are standing.
What we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, is that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the world economy. We know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the world economy.
That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. I mean,
the colonized world were decolonized in the 50s, 60s, and also the 70s. The colonial powers like Britain and France left physically. But if the multinational corporation, which are headquarters and owned by British, French, and American men, then is colonization over? Because at the end of the day, what you want is the wealth and the resources. And if you can still have your interest in those countries and exploit the minerals, then is colonialism really over? And as you look at the conflict now in the Western societies and England in general, you realize that the average citizen who is in England, white, who are complaining, is because now nationalism is dead and they have not benefited from the spoils of colonialism and also what multinational corporations are doing today. So when there's not enough resources, and now multiculturalism has replaced nationalism now, it is always a recipe for ethnic conflict. And ethnic conflict, from my perspective, is a sidebar issue. The real issue, as what Karl Marx would say, the history of society is always about class conflict. It has never been about ethnic conflict. Because when you assess it all, most of the persons who are demonstrating all over the Western societies, they are working people. They're the average citizens who want a piece of the pie. But there's not enough to trickle down. So therefore, ethnic conflict has become an absorber and a deflector from the real issue, which is class conflict. Not enough wealth going down from the elites to the average man and woman in the streets. So while all of this anti-immigration and pro-immigration demonstration and conflict was taking place, there were deals, billion-dollar and trillion-dollar deals taking place at Windsor Castle, hosted by His Royal Highness King Charles and Donald Trump and all the executives who run big multinational corporations. So in essence, the demonstration that was taking place was just a footnote. It was not affecting deals because the power brokers know that. That is literally an irrelevant issue. That is a perfect distraction from what we are doing and what we're about to do.
Get the army on the streets. That's what you'd like to see.
I wouldn't hesitate. Nothing else has worked.
What can Donald Trump teach the UK government about illegal immigration?
He's actually achieved, you can hate Trump all you like, but you cannot deny what he's done on the southern border in America is a spectacular success. Under Joe Biden, they estimate up to 10 million. They don't know the exact number, but they estimate up to 10 million people in 4 years went over that southern border illegally into the United States. And under Trump, he's pretty well stopped it stone dead. Now, there are aspects of his immigration policy that I think have gone too far, that I wouldn't like to see replicated here. Would I like to see Trump policies, in other words, zero tolerance, involving National Guard, involving military, involving...
So get the army on the streets. That's what you'd like to see.
I wouldn't hesitate. Nothing else has worked. You know, why shouldn't we?
For the average person who doesn't understand, this pro-immigration and anti-immigration conflict is not and will never be about ethnicity. Those are visual optics that the average person who doesn't understand economics and politics will always be a party of. The real policy is about class conflict. For the average citizen, British citizen, they're focusing on nationalism. But for the elites, they focus on globalism. These elites are diplomatic citizens who really don't need passports. They can fly anywhere in the world on their private jets. While the average citizens will always look at the other person based on skin color and languages and say you are the threat. But in essence, I have learned that every oppressed group will always internalize the oppression and attack each other. So the power brokers know that the oppressed class will always internalize their oppression and attack each other, not the elites. Once again, I want to thank you for watching. Please don't forget to share this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.